In a world brimming with noise and endless conversations, how often do we truly grasp the strength hidden within silence? Picture a bustling crowd, each voice competing to be heard. Amidst this clamor, someone stands in calm silence, observing but not reacting, reflecting rather than responding. What if silence in specific moments could convey more wisdom, strength, and understanding than words ever could? What if it could transform how we navigate life's most challenging situations? Today, we'll embark on a journey through Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that offers us the profound lesson of knowing when to remain silent. As we explore each of these 9 critical moments, we'll follow the story of Alexios, a character facing challenges that test his patience, wisdom, and emotional control. Through Alexios's experiences, we'll uncover how silence can become our most potent ally, allowing us to rise above circumstances with dignity and insight. And as we reach the final lesson, you may find a way to unlock inner strength even when words feel necessary. Ready to dive into the art of Stoic silence? Let's begin. 1. When confronted with injustice. Justice is not only what we do, but also what we refrain from doing. Alexios, a young lawyer in a sprawling city, was a man devoted to fairness. His world revolved around representing those who couldn't speak up for themselves. But one day, Alexios faced a staggering injustice. A case he had poured his heart into was dismissed without a fair hearing. Worse yet, the opposing side falsely accused him of dishonesty to discredit his efforts. The temptation to defend himself was overwhelming. Words rose to his lips, ready to argue, to set the record straight. Yet, in that tense moment, he remembered something his mentor, an old Stoic named Lucian, had once told him: "Injustice is like a storm. You don't try to talk to the storm, you simply stand firm and wait for it to pass." Would silence, Alexios wondered, truly serve him better than words? In Stoicism, facing injustice with silence is not weakness, it's a profound strength. By choosing not to engage in conflict or defense, we protect our own peace and honor. Alexios thought about Nelson Mandela, who endured years of imprisonment under false accusations, but emerged not with anger, but with a message of unity and peace. He saw that Mandela's silent endurance was more powerful than any words of self-defense could have been. Instead of reacting, Alexios held his ground. He let the accusations wash over him like waves against rock. His quiet response unsettled his accusers, who expected a fiery reaction, and in the absence of such resistance, the fervor of their attack diminished. In time, his truth emerged, not because he fought back, but because his integrity became evident. Silence in moments of injustice acts as a powerful shield, protecting us from being drawn into a cycle of anger and retaliation. It grants us the space to rise above the situation, letting our actions and character speak for themselves. After all, as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is to be unlike him who wronged you. Alexios began to realize that his silence had an impact beyond himself. His peers observed his dignified response and began to view him with a newfound respect. And in holding to his principles, Alexios became a living example of what it means to choose silence over needless conflict, to focus on what he could control, his response, while leaving the rest to unfold as it would. How would you respond in such a situation? Would you be able to embrace silence over confrontation, knowing that the storm of injustice may pass without a word? The strength of character lies not in how loudly we defend ourselves, but in the silent resilience we embody. 2. During unfair criticism. The sting of criticism lies in how deeply we let it pierce our own mind. Alexios's journey through the legal world wasn't without its share of critics. As he gained experience, he took on more challenging cases, and with this, critiques of his methods and style became inevitable. One day, after completing a particularly complex case, a senior colleague unfairly criticized his strategy, dismissing his efforts as reckless. The remarks felt personal, cutting into his sense of accomplishment. In moments like these, the instinct to defend oneself can be nearly irresistible, but Alexios remembered the wisdom of the Stoics. If something outside of you hurts you, it is not the thing itself, but your perception of it. He recognized that the real pain of criticism was not in the words themselves, but in how much power he allowed those words to have over him. So he chose silence. Alexios observed that, by remaining quiet, he not only kept his dignity intact, but also retained control over his emotions. He let his senior colleague's words pass by him, choosing instead to reflect on his own intentions and values. Was there truth in the criticism? Was there something he could learn to improve his approach? Or was it simply a moment of misplaced frustration from someone else? In Stoicism, silence in the face of unfair criticism offers two gifts: self-reflection and self-control. Instead of rushing to defend ourselves, we gain the chance to ask, what can I learn from this? Sometimes the harshest critiques reveal hidden insights, and other times they merely expose the inner conflicts of others. By choosing not to respond, Alexios allowed his work to speak for itself. In time, his colleagues and even the critic began to see the value in his approach. His silence gave space for his actions to demonstrate his dedication to his clients, and eventually, respect grew around his quiet resolve. How often have we allowed words spoken in haste or anger to disturb our peace? Imagine if, like Alexios, we simply let these words pass, unaffected, learning from them if we can, but otherwise allowing them to fall away without reaction. Silence becomes a form of resilience, a way to preserve our inner calm and integrity in the face of outside judgments. Would you be willing to stay silent when criticized unfairly, trusting that your actions will ultimately speak louder than words? Let's see where Alexios's journey takes him next. 3. When handling rumors. A life lived in integrity is the strongest shield against the whispers of rumor. Rumors are like wildfire. Once sparked, they spread quickly, fueled by curiosity and assumption. Alexios experienced this firsthand when a rumor about his involvement in a controversial case began to circulate. As the story spread, he could feel the weight of others' assumptions pressing down on him. People he once considered allies seemed distant, avoiding him or speaking in hushed tones. In this moment, Alexios remembered the Stoic teaching that it is not outside events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. He had a choice: to respond to each rumor or to remain silent, letting his integrity act as his defense. So, Alexios chose silence once more. Instead of addressing the rumors directly, he continued his work with the same dedication and honesty that defined him. He understood that those who knew him well would recognize the rumors for what they were: baseless noise. And over time, as the buzz of rumors died down, people began to see that Alexios's character was unshaken, his values unchanged. The Stoic approach to rumors is to let them exhaust themselves. When we respond to every whisper, we feed the flame, giving energy to something that may be best left to burn out on its own. Silence in these instances preserves our focus, allowing us to remain centered on what truly matters. Through his experience, Alexios realized that silence allowed him to maintain his peace, focusing on his own values rather than trying to control what others thought. And as his dedication to his work continued, people came to respect his quiet integrity even more. Would you be willing to let your actions speak for themselves, trusting that the truth of who you are will rise above any rumor? Let us follow Alexios further as he encounters another challenge that calls for Stoic silence. 4. In the midst of boasts, confidence is quiet, ego is loud. At a networking event one evening, Alexios found himself amidst a group of colleagues many of whom were eager to share their recent successes. One colleague in particular seemed to boast endlessly about recent promotions and financial achievements, turning every conversation into a celebration of their own accolades. Alexios felt the familiar urge to counter with his own accomplishments, to subtly remind others of his own success. But he paused, remembering the Stoic insight that true confidence does not require public acknowledgement. He thought about Socrates, who was known for saying little of himself, letting his actions and wisdom speak louder than any words. And so, Alexios chose silence. He listened, nodded, and let others take the stage, observing how they filled the room with their voices. In his quiet presence, he felt a sense of inner contentment, knowing that he didn't need validation from anyone but himself. In Stoicism, silence during others' boasting is an expression of self-assurance. By choosing not to compete for attention, we conserve our energy, reserving it for moments that genuinely align with our values. This approach not only shields us from unnecessary competition, but also establishes a quiet respect for others and, in turn, often earns respect from them. As the night went on, Alexios noticed that his silence had a unique effect. People began to approach him individually, drawn to his calm presence amidst the noise. Conversations turned deeper, more genuine, and Alexios found that he'd gained a sense of connection far richer than any boast could provide. When faced with others' need to boast, would you be able to embrace silence, letting your actions speak rather than words? With each encounter, Alexios learned more about the quiet power of Stoicism and silence. Let's see how he handles the next challenge awaiting him. 5. Dealing with loss. In silence, we find space to heal. One winter evening, Alexios received a call that would forever change his life. His father, a man who had been his greatest mentor and friend, had passed away suddenly. In the quiet hours following the news, Alexios was filled with an overwhelming sadness and sense of emptiness. He thought of how his father had taught him the values of resilience, kindness, and strength. Now, faced with the silence of loss, Alexios wondered how he could possibly fill the void. Instead of escaping the pain or numbing it with distractions, he chose to sit with his grief, embracing the silence that came with it. He remembered the words of a Stoic teaching: "Loss is part of the natural course of life, and to fight against it is to struggle against nature itself." Alexios knew he had no power to change what had happened, only to decide how he would respond. He took long walks through the city at dawn, letting the stillness around him mirror the quiet within. He reflected on his father's life, finding comfort in memories and gratitude rather than bitterness or despair. In these silent moments, he felt his father's presence more keenly than ever, as though grief had opened a door to a deeper understanding of the love they had shared. Stoicism teaches that loss, while deeply painful, is an inevitable part of life. By accepting it with quiet reflection rather than resistance, we allow ourselves to grieve in a way that honors both our loved ones and our own journey. In choosing silence, Alexios found that he could heal with dignity, making space to honor his father's legacy. In time, the pain became less sharp, and in its place was a quiet strength, a resilience shaped by acceptance. Alexios carried his father's memory with him, not as a burden, but as a source of inspiration. Loss had taught him that some answers come only in silence, when we allow ourselves to truly feel. Have you ever experienced loss and found that silence brought you a unique kind of comfort? By embracing the quiet of grief, we give ourselves permission to grow from the pain. Now, let us see how Alexios uses silence to confront yet another challenging situation. 6. When confronting ignorance. True wisdom lies in knowing when not to engage. One day, Alexios was involved in a heated discussion at his office. A colleague, who prided himself on his knowledge, was spreading misinformation about a legal matter. Despite having facts on his side, Alexios knew that his colleague would be unreceptive to correction, firmly entrenched in his beliefs. Alexios faced a choice. He could argue and correct the ignorance on display, or he could stay silent, sparing himself a likely futile confrontation. In Stoic fashion, he chose the latter, understanding that silence could sometimes be more impactful than any argument. He remembered the teachings of Epictetus, who advised that we cannot control others' beliefs, only our response to them. If someone insists on a certain view, arguing will only deepen their resistance. Instead, Alexios chose silence, knowing that engaging would be like trying to convince a storm to change its course. He nodded politely, acknowledging his colleague's perspective without offering counter-arguments. Over time, his calm, respectful demeanor began to subtly influence others around him. Colleagues noticed his restraint and started seeking his advice more frequently, valuing his ability to stay grounded amidst disagreement. Silence, in the face of ignorance, often reveals a quiet strength that speaks louder than correction. It reflects our understanding that knowledge doesn't require constant defense, especially when those we face are unwilling to listen. By choosing not to respond, Alexios demonstrated his commitment to wisdom, earning respect for his patience and control. Would you be willing to stay silent in the face of ignorance, trusting that your silence itself communicates wisdom? Sometimes, the most profound lessons are those that need no words. Let's see how Alexios continues to navigate the trials of life through Stoic silence. 7. When insulted. An insult only has power if we choose to accept it. Alexios was no stranger to rivalry in the legal world, but one particularly competitive colleague, Damien, seemed to harbor a special disdain for him. One day, during a meeting, Damien made a biting, sarcastic remark about Alexios's recent case, dismissing his approach as idealistic and naive. The insult was crafted to provoke, aiming to publicly diminish Alexios's reputation. The words stung, but Alexios recalled a Stoic teaching he had once read. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. The insult, he realized, only had the power he chose to give it. So, Alexios chose silence. He met Damien's gaze calmly, neither acknowledging nor retaliating. He allowed the insult to hang in the air, fading as the conversation moved on. By refusing to react, Alexios displayed a quiet strength that left Damien looking foolish rather than triumphant. Stoicism teaches that an insult is merely an invitation to be disturbed, not a command. We decide whether to accept or reject it. In remaining silent, Alexios showed that his peace of mind wasn't something Damien could disrupt with mere words. His calm defiance in the face of insult spoke volumes, setting him apart as a man of true resilience and self-control. In time, Damien's comments lost their sting, and others in the office began to see Alexios's silence as a mark of his wisdom. By choosing not to respond, he gained a respect that could not have been earned through words alone. Have you ever faced an insult that you chose to let go of? By embracing silence, we reject the control others might have over our emotions, choosing instead to rise above. Let's follow Alexios into the next challenge that calls for Stoic silence. 8. When anger strikes. Anger is a temporary madness, silence its cure. There was a day when Alexios's patience was tested to its very limits. He was working late on an important case when his assistant made a mistake that set him back by hours. Frustrated, Alexios felt anger boiling within him. His first impulse was to confront the assistant, to express his disappointment and vent his frustrations. But then he remembered the words of Marcus Aurelius. How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the circumstances that aroused it in us. Anger, he realized, would only cloud his judgment and strain relationships. What would he gain by letting anger take control? So Alexios took a deep breath and chose silence. Instead of reacting impulsively, he allowed himself a moment to cool down, to process his emotions before speaking. As he calmed, he realized that his assistant's mistake was a genuine error, not a personal attack. By remaining silent, he avoided escalating the situation, preserving both his own peace and his assistant's respect. Stoicism teaches that silence in moments of anger provides space for rational thinking. In choosing not to speak, Alexios allowed reason to replace emotion, transforming what could have been a confrontation into a constructive moment. This pause helped him to see the situation clearly, allowing for a more thoughtful response later. Have you ever been able to pause and choose silence instead of acting out in anger? Anger often leads us away from our values, while silence brings us back to reason. Let's see how Alexios employs Stoic silence in the final challenge. 9. In response to false accusations. The truth needs no defense, only time. Late one afternoon, as Alexios prepared to leave the office, he was confronted by a fellow attorney who accused him of tampering with evidence on a case. The accusation was baseless, a desperate attempt by someone threatened by Alexios' success. It would have been easy, and entirely justifiable, for Alexios to defend himself right there, to refute the claims and prove his innocence. But he took a deep breath, recalling the Stoic teaching, "If anyone can prove and show me that I think and act in error, I will gladly change it, for I seek the truth." However, he knew in this case there was no truth to the claim. So, he chose silence. Alexios understood that responding defensively would only fuel his accuser's agenda, possibly giving more weight to the false claims. Instead, he allowed his character, his history of integrity, and his dedication to the truth to stand as his defense. His silence conveyed a calm confidence, unsettling his accuser and signaling that he had nothing to hide. In Stoicism, silence in the face of false accusations is a powerful stance. By choosing not to react, we place our trust in time and truth rather than feeling compelled to prove ourselves. Alexios knew that anyone who truly understood his character would see through the accusation, and that, over time, the baselessness of the claim would reveal itself without him needing to intervene. In the days that followed, his colleagues began to see the accusations for what they were, a desperate attempt to undermine him. Alexios' quiet dignity not only cleared his name, but also earned him deeper respect from those who admired his unshakable character. Have you ever faced a false accusation and chosen silence over defense? In trusting that truth will prevail, we embody a strength that no argument could achieve. Let us now reflect on the journey of Alexios and the wisdom Stoic silence brings. Through Alexios' journey, we have explored the profound power of silence in 9 key moments, each rooted deeply in the teachings of Stoicism. When faced with injustice, criticism, rumors, boasts, loss, ignorance, insults, anger, or false accusations, Alexios chose to stay silent, not as a passive retreat, but as a conscious act of resilience, wisdom, and inner strength. Silence, as Stoicism teaches us, is not merely the absence of words, but a deliberate choice that protects our peace and reveals our true character. In each of these situations, Alexios demonstrated that silence speaks in ways words cannot, elevating him above the challenges he faced. His story reminds us that silence can often be the most courageous response, one that reflects dignity, calm, and unshakable integrity. What if you could embrace this silent strength in your own life? What if you allowed yourself a pause in moments that stir anger, doubt, or insecurity? Imagine the peace that would follow, the clarity and calm that silence could bring into your relationships, career, and inner life. As you think about these 9 situations, consider how Stoic silence could transform the way you face life's inevitable challenges. Reflect on Alexios' journey and ask yourself, how can I incorporate this silent wisdom into my own daily struggles? If you found these lessons meaningful, I invite you to comment below with your thoughts or share a moment when silence served you well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with others who might find peace and strength in Stoicism. May this path of silent resilience bring calm and wisdom to your own journey. Thank you for watching, and may the strength of Stoic silence guide you always.